Please do keep your camera on if you'd like to. It just helps when those people that are talking can see who they're talking to. It helps to reduce the nerves a little bit to know that there is an audience out there. Please make sure that you are on mute throughout this session. There will be chances to ask questions as we go through and at the end. It just being on mute helps to reduce all the background noise and any echoes that we might get. If you do have a question, please use the raise your hand function or type it in the chat box. We do have a few people today supporting to keep an eye on those questions. So we've got Sophia and we've got Diana. They will be making a log to share when it's appropriate. We will be using something called Slido, which is a new one to me, but I'm sure a link will be popped in the chat or come on screen soon for you to be able to do that. That is where you can ask your question anonymously if you do not feel comfortable speaking out or typing it in the chat box. So feel free to use that if you'd like. There is the option for the transcript. So if you are hard of hearing or you just need that little bit of extra support, you can click on the three dots at the top called More, and then you can go to live transcribe and that will support you. Today's session is being recorded, so if you miss anything or if you do need to leave at any point, we will share the recording when it's ready for you to view at your pleasure. And finally, just please be respectful and professional throughout the session. A lot of work has gone in to today, so we'd just like to give everyone the courtesy of being able to share what they've done and what they've come up with you, just as we will respect any questions that are put to us and do our best to answer them in a respectful and professional way as well. So with the housekeeping rules done, I'm going to introduce you to our glorious leader for the day, Andrew Hammond. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you, Aaron. Can everyone hear me okay? If I get a thumbs up?
We can hear you, yeah.
Fabulous. And my computer has just died. My patch of doom has just come on the screen saying my computer is running through patches. So I'm hoping it's going to last, and I have another computer next to me just in case. My name's Andrew Hammond. I'm a non-exec director and also deputy chair of Northamptonshire Integrated Care Board. I've been with the organisation since the start, and before that was working in CCGs. And it's a real privilege to be asked to chair this LGBTQ+ History Month event. A little bit about me. So as well as my NHS non-exec role, I'm also chief executive of a skills and training charity. And one of our key programs is the Springboard Development Programs, which some of you may have heard of, may have been on. And they very much have equality, diversity and inclusion at their foundations. Before that, I had a bit of a corporate career, moving from advertising to be managing director of Royal Mail Stamps business. So a bit of a jump from NHS to stamps. And I still have great pride when I see a gold post box, because that was my baby. The gold medal stamps in the 2012 Olympics and gold post boxes that you see dotted around. I was in Edinburgh the other week and saw some of those gold post boxes, so I was delighted to see those. And then my first role before joining Royal Mail was actually, I was one of the co-founders of an organisation called Red Ribbon International, which brought the Red Ribbon to the UK to promote awareness of HIV. And it was at that time that my eyes were really, truly opened when I saw the stigma that friends who were living with HIV were subject to. And that opened my eyes to sort of equality, diversity and inclusion. And when I reflect back to the 90s and what I would almost say the dark days of Clause 28, it does feel that we've been making progress with equal marriage rights, personal interest in HIV treatments really, really progressing. And when I look at my own kids, it feels like we've got a generational shift in attitudes. But, and this is a personal view, I do think we're coming from a position where people, society and governments were dominated by ignorance. I think we've still got a long way to go. But actually, it feels that we're at a tipping point from a societal point of view. And I think there's lots of noise and lots of events which are quite worrying from a personal point of view in terms of language and discrimination. So I hope that we make the tipping point in the right direction. And on behalf of the ICB board, I'd like to share our commitment to the LGBTQ+ community. As a board, we're absolutely committed to try and make sure we get the right atmosphere and environment that's supportive and allows people to thrive as themselves. which is why I'm delighted to be able to chair this event today. So firstly, we're going to hear from Anamika about NHFT's Stonewall achievement. Then Graham's going to go on and discuss lesbian, gay and bisexual mental health. And finally, we'll hear about reverse mentoring, which I believe we were the first system to introduce. So to kick us off, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Anamika Joshi. And Anamika is a Quality and Engagement Manager at NHFT. And she will share NHFT's achievement of the Stonewall Gold Star rating, which measures progress on LGBTQ+ inclusion in the workplace. And NHFT is in the top 100 employers in the UK, not just in the health service, in the UK, for LGBTQ+ inclusion. So welcome, Anamika, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Just before I start my section, I'm going to share a presentation. So if you can let me know if you can see that. Can everyone see the presentation on the screen? Yeah. Okay, so thank you for coming, everybody. My name is Anamika Joshi. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Equality and Engagement Manager at NHFT. And Diana asked me to come along today and speak about our Trust Stonewall accreditation, an achievement that is worth celebrating. So over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to go over why we decided to complete the Stonewall Workplace Quality Index, what it involved, what the outcome was, and just some top tips for you to take away from today. So coming on to why we completed the Stonewall Workplace Quality Index. As an organisation, we are always looking to make changes to remove barriers for underrepresented groups and continue to work towards creating a culture that's intrinsically inclusive and creating a sense of belonging for our staff as well. So we decided to undertake the Stonewall Workplace Quality Index to identify where we can make changes within our organisation as part of our inclusion journey and further explore our offer and build a workplace where LGBTQ+ staff can be themselves. So what it involved, the Workplace Equality Index is split into 8 sections. These include policies and benefits, the employee life cycle, the LGBTQ+ employee network group, empowering individuals, leadership, monitoring, external engagement and service delivery, and also a staff feedback questionnaire. And now I'm going to talk about some of the things we did against each of these sections. The Stonewall has a clear scoring criteria and specification to meet against each of these sections. The first thing I did was do a gap analysis and identify where we were already meeting the requirements against the sections and where the gaps were within our organisation. Then I identified some quick wins, changes that we could incorporate quickly to demonstrate part of the submission. And then I looked at areas that we could incorporate as part of the LGBTQ+ network strategy and think about making those bigger changes in the future. So against each section, if I start off with policies and benefits, some of the things we did there was I worked very closely with our HR team to change some of the HR policies to include gender neutral language. I also wrote a new transgender policy for our organisation to support staff that were going through the transition journey. And the feedback we got from Stonewall on this policy included that each section was well defined, yet flexible to suit individual employees. We also included anti-LGBTQ+ bullying and harassment in our bullying and harassment policy and included distinct examples of homophobia, biphobia and transphobia to support individuals to accurately identify and understand what these different behaviours can look like. Coming on to the employee life cycle, we understand at NHFT that it's important from the very first interaction someone has with the organisation that LGBTQ+ staff feel welcome, and therefore we have updated our job sites and with an LGBTQ+ inclusive statement, and every year we go to the Northamptonshire Pride event to recruit staff as well. Our EDI mandatory training was also updated with good examples of best practice when it comes to accurate information around anti-LGBTQ+ behaviour, something that we don't tolerate in our organisation. The LGBTQ plus employee network group is the section where we scored the highest. We were able to evidence how our network has a robust structure and support, including a clear terms of reference, a substantial budget for them to work with, and also formal senior champions and clear details on time for network activities and allocated to individuals. It also included how our work has taken up various opportunities. Our network, has taken up various opportunities to promote itself to marginalised groups, and how we can consistently communicate the confidential support that our network offers. When it came to empowering individuals, we demonstrated in the submission that through various leadership matters sessions in our organisation, we share and communicate trust-wide the experiences of our LGBTQ plus staff, and promote LGBTQ plus inclusion through different methods, including our Lanyards for Champions programme. And we also utilise a variety of platforms to get out key messages as well. Under leadership, we were able to demonstrate as part of our submission that our senior leaders meet regularly with our LGBTQ plus network group, and they all have inclusion-based objectives in their appraisals. And they also come to various events and conferences offering a message of support. When it came to the monitoring section, we were able to demonstrate that we do collect robust data when it comes to sexual orientation, with some good options for selection for our staff as well. In terms of external engagement and service delivery, we demonstrated how we require our suppliers to comply with the Equality Act. And the staff feedback questionnaire, we had a response rate of 290 staff complete that questionnaire, which was almost an equal split between our LGBTQ plus staff and non-LGBTQ plus. And the overall picture that staff feedback gave was that people did feel NHFT give a visible commitment to LGBTQ plus equality in the organisation. There was a strong commitment to LGBTQ plus allyship, and there was a high percentage of staff that felt they were able to be themselves at work. The outcome then of this work was Northamptonshire was ranked 65th out of the outcome. So out of gold, silver or bronze, we received the gold award. And we're rated in the top 100 employers of LGBTQ plus inclusion, ranking at 65. What we do now is we use this accreditation on our recruitment pages to attract more talent from the LGBTQ plus community. And so what difference did this make? We have seen an increase in our membership to our staff network. We have received feedback from a staff member who went through their transition journey to say how the transgender policy that was written was extremely useful for them in considering certain points in their journey. For example, when they were ready to inform their team. And also we've had feedback from managers who have supported staff going through the transition, saying the policy served as a useful guide to fully support their staff through the transition as well. So as an organisation, we're going to continue to work towards removing any barriers for our staff. There's always going to be improvements to make. And I'm going to come on to now the top tips for some of the things you can take away. I would say time is essential if you're doing the submission. Set yourself enough time before the submission date to map out and plan the work that's really going to be required to go into it. Linking with the key stakeholders as well. I couldn't have done this submission alone. So working with the network lead, the procurement team to check what's in our contracts, our recruitment team and HR team was essential. Also share the learning. So if anybody here wants a copy of our transgender policy, and you can take that and make that your own, just to continue to support LGBTQ plus staff within your own organisation, it's really important to share. And then we continue to improve. We haven't stopped just because we've done the submission, stopped the work around inclusion and making changes and differences to support our LGBTQ staff. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions?
So we'll open it up for any questions. Either just stick your hand up.
Andrew,
No.
I believe that Sophia has some questions for you.
Yeah, we've got a few
Fire
questions
away.
that have come through on Slido. So obviously these are anonymous questions that have come in from the group. So the first question is around what were the challenges in achieving a Gold Star achievement?
I would say one of the biggest challenges was time. So I only gave myself 3-4 months prior to the submission date, thinking, oh, I'll get it done. But actually, a bit more time would have been useful, I think, in mapping out and planning, because it was a lot of work. We had to do a lot of work in that short period of time. So I would say that was one of the main challenges when doing it, just making sure there's enough time prior to the submission date to plan and schedule everything in.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. The next question we've got is what difference has Stonewall made to NHFT?
I think the biggest difference is showing our staff that we are serious about removing barriers that staff face. We've got a commitment from our exec team who are serious about removing those barriers and really making a difference as well. And the accreditation itself, the Gold Award, and being in the top 100 employers is great to have in terms of attracting new talent and retaining current staff as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And then just the third question is around kind of why should we use the Stonewall Index? Somebody here is saying that, you know, it is quite expensive. And is there a more local organisation that could be used given that budget is limited at the moment?
I'm not sure about any local organisations, but I found Stonewall really useful to use because there was clear specification, 8 sections, what they're looking for and the criteria we need to meet. And even though there wasn't enough time to make the changes to meet all of it, we were able to do enough, and we know we can then use it as a benchmark on what we can do more. So that's what we've done as well. So currently we're looking at working with the estates team to see, you know, where in all our trust sites, where can we now build gender neutral facilities as well for our staff. So it gives a clear benchmark on what best practice looks like. That's what I would say one of the benefits of using Stonewall would be.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Yeah, those are the only 3 questions on Slido at the moment, but I'm sure people might have some more as we go through.
We'll probably have some time at the end. Thank you, Anamika. I think that the I can certainly vouch for the fact that I know quite a few of the board members from NHFT at a non-exec level, because we sit on committees together, and it really is pervasive across the organisation. So there is that leadership and challenge at a board level, which I think is really important to support. So thank you.
Thank you.
So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Graham Whitfield. Graham is a consultant psychiatrist in psychotherapy who specialises in CBT, EMDR, and the effects of complex trauma. Graham's written over 20 publications, including an introductory textbook on CBT for junior doctors. He grew up in a very rural part of the northeast of England. I'm not sure what very rural is, but I'm from the northwest of England, so we'll have a competition about that. He identifies as a gay man. He's an ex-user of NHS mental health services and secondary care, and he's also a member of the Royal College of Psychiatrists Rainbow Special Interest Group, which I'm sure he's going to mention later. So Graham, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. This is a stressful bit just to see if it uploads. Nope.
Nothing yet.
It's just flashing.
Maybe
do you want me to pop the... Yeah, I'll quickly go back to the presentation. Just pop that up on the screen.
I think, yeah, if you just... And I'll tell you when to move forward with the slides.
Yeah,
It doesn't want
perfect.
to do it.
Thank you very much. There we go.
Thank you.
Everyone see that?
Yeah, so I'm Graham Whitfield. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. I've worked in the NHS for 30 years. And my pronouns are he, him. Do you want to go to the next slide? When I was thinking about what to do in these 30 minutes or so, how do I design a workshop about mental health and LGBTQA plus people? Well, it would include so much. So I've done a very personal journey through the things that I think are important. The workshop itself is meant to be much longer, and it was very tempting to take out slides. I've decided not to, but just to skim over very quickly one or two of the slides so that you can be signposted to the information. Next. I wanted to do this talk, and I've given a similar talk to particularly medical staff over the whole East Midlands because of a few reasons. One is feedback from patients, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. I've always been so disappointed that doctors don't go to LGBTQ plus events. Never. I sit there. I know that there was a large event within the trust 3 years ago, and we had one other doctor there. And I think that was because I asked him to go. And then I had a very weird incident happened at a teaching event. We call them balanced group events 5 years ago. If I have time in the questions at the end, I'll tell you what happened. Next slide. So the things that I'm going to talk about, I think that there is a background of abuses and mistrust in particular, and Andrew talked about Clause 28. I think the shadow of that is very long. I'll talk about the rates of mental illness. Are they the same rates in LGBTQ plus community as the general population? I want to talk a little bit about heteronormativity and coming out, and think a little bit about what mental health services can do to be more welcoming to LGBTQ plus populations. Next slide. I'm not going to tell you the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. Hopefully you know that, but I'll keep that there. And there's a copy of all of these slides if you just want to use the information. Next slide. And likewise, hopefully you all know that sexual orientation is in there as a protected characteristic, as is gender reassignment. Next slide. So we're going to watch a pop song. This will be very familiar to many of you, unless you're very young. And I want you to look and consider the concept of heteronormativity. Also think a little bit about shaming and internalized homophobia. And I'll try and define these concepts after we've watched the video. Do you want to play that now?
Sorry, 1 second. There you go. I'm hoping you can all see and hear this.
Okay, thank you. We go back to the last slide. So what do you think heteronormativity is referring to then? Aaron?
I feel like it's cheating if I give the answer, but because it was a little
Go
bit
for it.
quiet, I don't mind jumping in. It's essentially where being heterosexual is seen as the standard, and that anything that doesn't fit within being heterosexual and what heterosexual behaviour should or could entail, it's seen as different and wrong and abnormal in some way.
Yeah. And does anybody want to give examples? There's so many examples in the video of heteronormativity and how that caused pain, not just offence, but pain to the character who's Jimmy Somerville. Anamika?
Is it the, what am I trying to say? Him not being able to be himself, or being able to express who he really is, because he can't relate to everything that's going on around him because it's all heteronormativity.
Yeah, it's he's living in a world that shuns him literally,
Yeah.
and he's reminded of it in lots of ways that many people wouldn't get, they wouldn't understand. So the classical one, which I'm sure they've put there on purpose, was the advert as he's walking through the station, manpower if the cap fits. And then things such as obviously finding the diver attractive, and that being shown to be totally disgusting, unacceptable, and then them attacking him, right the way through to the shaming effect on the family of him being assaulted for a gay-related assault, and rather than being particularly upset for his feelings, they appear to be angered, shamed that he had allowed himself to be put in that situation. Internalized homophobia is the effect of all of this. It becomes part of the individual's own hatred for who they are. So they begin to form a dislike for perhaps the more feminine aspects of themselves. I think, as I'm sure you noticed, the diver appeared more than happy to be appreciated when he was diving, but as soon as that crossed the line of Jimmy Somerville saying to him that he was attractive or something like that, then that probably kicked in that internalized homophobia, resulting in hatred. Next slide. Next slide. I'm not going to go through all of this. Again, it's for information only, just to point out that It is only just over 30 years since homosexuality was considered a mental illness. In the main systems that are used all over the world, the International Classification of Diseases and the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. It is only 4 years since same-sex marriage finally became legal in Northern Ireland and the last part of the UK. From a personal point of view, the thing that affected me the most was the ban on gay people being a part of the UK armed forces. It is again only 8 years since that was stopped. That ban was stopped, even though it hadn't been enforced since 2000. One of my first partners was had been chucked out of the army because of being found out to be gay. And I just have memories of sitting in his house in Lincoln, actually, with eggs having been thrown at the window and just feeling completely threatened, and that the community around us would perhaps attack or something. Is a very strange experience. Next slide. Again, this is to remind us that there are large swathes of the world where being gay is illegal. Many places, including places where we take the junior doctors from in NHFT, it is illegal and punished with the death penalty. And I'm very aware of that when I'm supervising the junior doctors, where they've come from and what attitudes and experiences they will have been exposed to before. Next slide. Again, just for information, the rates of LGBT in the population, or at least lesbian and gay and bisexual. Next slide. What's important in this slide is the second point down, which is that the rates are much higher in very young age groups, so 16 to 24. It's 8% rather than about 3%. When I've given this talk before, that's really alarmed some people. I've had some quite funny questions. It's not that people are becoming gay. It's simply that the bisexual group seem more capable, willing to identify as bisexual, and that reminds us of the continuity of sexuality, whereas before they probably wouldn't have identified as LGBT, only the gay and lesbians. Next slide. This is important for psychiatry. It's the stability of identity. In heterosexual men and women, most people remain identified as heterosexual, and that's not the case in the LGBTQ, and particularly not in bisexual men and women, particularly bisexual women. They will change their identity quite frequently, and this is important in psychiatry because some of the diagnoses that we make is based on instability of sexual identity, so we have to be careful with this. Next slide. Quickly, just to mention that the rates of mental illness is higher in LGBTQA+ populations than the general population. These are American statistics, and it basically shows that across the whole area of mental illness and suicide and substance misuse, rates are higher in the LGBTQA+ population, and they state that it's likely to be linked to family rejection and discrimination. They also have barriers accessing mental health treatment in America. Next slide. In this country, it's very, very similar figures. These are quite old figures, but they show exactly the same pattern. Next slide. The rates are highest, surprisingly, in bisexual men. They are the group that show the highest rates of mental illness relative to heterosexual and gay men. Next slide. The rates in gay women show a similar pattern. We don't know why, but the difference between gay and straight in women is less. So there's less of a pattern of higher rates, and the rates amongst bisexual women aren't as high as lesbians. Next slide. In terms of a variety of other measures, violence and bullying seemed to be a particular problem in gay women. And when it comes to school bullying, the final point there, I was surprised to see that certainly in this very large survey, it's now over 20 years old, that gay men said that they hadn't been bullied more often than heterosexual men at school. However, amongst the gay men that had been bullied, they usually said that it was because of their sexual orientation. Next slide. I think this is interesting, and I hope it's changed. I haven't seen more recent figures. I'm sure some others here may know of them, that only a quarter of bisexuals said that their fathers viewed their sexuality as positive, slightly higher, veteran gay men. Lesbians, bisexual women, the rate was slightly higher again, but notice again, it's way less than half of all parents viewed their sexuality positively. And that affects people. At this point, just over half said that they were happy to tell their GPs that they were gay or bisexual. And similarly, at this point, less than a quarter of bisexual women were happy to tell their colleagues that they about their sexuality. I don't know what the current rate of openness in the workplace is. At that point, 20 years ago, it was just over half of gay and lesbians were open to their colleagues. Next slide. So obviously the question is, why might mental ill health rates be higher amongst this population? Next slide. I don't have the magic answers. What I do know is that most bodies, including mine, very clearly say that it's not because of being LGBTQIA+ itself, but it's due to homophobia, transphobia, the way that people are treated in society. As a scientist, I struggle with that definitive response. I would like to know for sure what are the causes, but to my knowledge, we don't know for sure at the moment. What I do know personally is that the experience of coming out is profoundly difficult for many people in this population, and it's something that's often misunderstood or not made a big enough thing of by the general population. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit of some of the experiences of LGBTQA+ in the mental health services. Next slide. Again, this is the original study. It's pretty small and it's 20 years ago, so I'm sure again others have got more up-to-date data. But at this point, many negative experiences were logged, including overt homophobia within the mental health system. Next slide. Now, for me, this is the most important slide of the whole presentation because it resonates with my own experience, both personally and professionally. And that is that, in a very British way, homophobia is common in my experience in mental health systems, but it's subtle. So this, I find a very sad quote from somebody. I had never said that I was gay to anybody properly. I really wanted to and hoped that it would help me with my depression. I was very disappointed that my psychiatrist didn't want to know and didn't help me talk through it. He just seemed to change the subject and talk about something else. That's very much my experience, including with staff nowadays, not all of course, but a large number. And this is something that I really struggle with some of the junior doctors who feel uncomfortable going there with the topic. So what they will do, and I've seen it a number of times, their eye contact goes down and they subtly change the topic to talking about diagnosis or medication, something like that. But the message that is given is very much, you are not, or either you're not important, or this subject is uncomfortable to me or is wrong. And I think when somebody is very vulnerable in mental health systems, this is potentially a very toxic response. So I'm very keen to hammer this response out of the juniors that I have dealings with. Next slide. What could we do to improve the experience of this group in mental health services? I'm sure that the list is huge. Next slide. So again, this is a personal perspective. Heteronormativity still exists. It exists for me as a doctor is quite hilarious, really. I live in Leicester, and the number of times I've been asked if my children go to Leicester Grammar is quite funny, but it's just part of the culture. I think I may be wrong, but I sometimes think that medicine's quite a conservative culture, and there is, I think, more heteronormativity in there. Next slide. I'm always careful about when people have offices to be careful what things are on the wall, to be careful what things are on the desk. I'm surprised that staff often have pictures of children, pictures of school, reports, all sorts of things. And again, when you have people expecting to feel prejudice, expecting not to fit, it may feel extreme, but it can have an effect on people. Next slide. I think this is really important about the pronouns. I don't know about other people, but I seem to get a lot of spam on the internet front page at the moment, and they often seem to be GB news. And I don't want to offend anybody, but it often seems to be messages about society becoming woke and going too far, and it often links to pronoun use. I think it's really important. If you were transgender and people just didn't bother to ask or got it wrong, and often people get it wrong more than once, the message that you get yet again, similar to the Jimmy Somerville video, is, I am not important, I am defective, I am not good enough, I do not fit in. And I think if people realize that rather than being woke, it actually causes people pain, hurt, that they probably would make much more of an effort. And I think it's a lack of understanding. Next slide. I found this slightly depressing. The figures that I've been stating to you from over 20 years ago, there's very clear recommendations around those results, which included final recommendation there under number 1, specific training on how sexuality develops and the coming out process. I couldn't support that more, really. I think it's so important. Suicide prevention, suicides still happen with young people who feel trapped. And yeah, I think that the training that we give around protected characteristics, it should only be the beginning, not true understanding and true empathy with the lived experience of being LGBTQA+. Next slide, please. I think the specific issues still around next of kin visiting rights in hospital, which make life harder for many people. I've certainly struggled in that area myself. 1 in 4 people on the streets are LGBTQ+. Now, that's a very high proportion, much higher to the general, those in the general population. And we do know that 3/4 of youth homelessness amongst the population is caused by family rejection or abuse. So again, that coming out process, it's a dangerous point for this population and can cause homelessness and rejection and mental illness, all sorts of different things at a point in life often when you are very vulnerable. Next slide. Domestic violence, there are specific agencies, and I'll just leave these contact details up there. Male rape in the gay population is a real issue, and I've certainly had more than one patient who have been raped and told mental health services about the rape, and it was moved on. It wasn't taken with the severity and importance that it should have been, and that has been frankly abusive in my opinion, particularly in the area of personality disorder, where they wanted to really focus on the diagnosis and not understand the context of why these behaviors and self-regard have emerged. Next slide. Some gay people find the whole concept difficult because, if we're honest, it is a sexualized label, and the whole area of being gay really is far more than about sex. It's about identity, and there's a struggle, and you see it in Pride often between the whole broader identity issue and the sexualized identity, and some people struggle with that. I haven't used conversion therapy up until now. That's a huge topic, but clearly that's still around. It still haunts us from the sidelines. And I've mentioned coming out there, and will mention it again and again. Next slide. People come into mental health fearing prejudice. They really do. And they will judge, they will observe you for things like eye contact, to try and understand what your response is going to be. Can I bring my partner into a session? How will they be responded to? So I've certainly noticed patients giving limited self-disclosures and then watching staff in order to try and suss out how responsive, how respectful are you going to be. Next slide. I think I don't just think, I know that many in the LGBTQ plus are traumatized by earlier life experiences, often with family experiences, and just understanding the effect of trauma, of how people see themselves in the world. Understanding that the rules around things such as being able to ask about STDs on the wards, how staff may respond differently. Yeah, they don't expect necessarily that people will understand. Next slide. There's broader issues which I find fascinating, which is really coming to the fore at the moment. Isolation in old age. Now, in the last year, they've opened specifically LGBTQA plus old age homes in Brighton and in London. I think that's a great thing, but my fear with all of this is that people are isolated. They're almost ghettoized. So there's a difficult balance between ghettoization and people feeling comfortable amongst those that they can identify with. Loneliness, as is the case with the more general population, is important. Services for old age and mental health are perceived as conservative. And there's the issue of some older LGBTQ people come out in old age. I'm a member of a walking group, and a large proportion of people in that group have been married, children, and have decided to identify as gay and other things in older age, and it's that has specific issues with the wider family and society. Next slide. This is the final slide, really. I asked for suggestions from some patients and staff, and everybody seemed to emphasize the lanyards as being important to allow people to feel validated and safe. Asking about pronouns was seen as important, and just not making assumptions. And then finally taking an interest in their identity at times in their life when they've had to come out, how it's been for them, and perhaps even having these questions as a prompt in clerking systems, in admission systems, things like that. Next slide. These are just a list of support organisations. The AKT organisation there is specifically for LGBTQ youth homelessness. Next slide. And then finally, as I said at the beginning, I'm a member of the Rainbow Group of gay and lesbian, bisexual and trans psychiatrists. And yeah, I think it's great. It's a very small group, but we aim to increase knowledge, awareness, and reduce stigma amongst psychiatrists and to a broader mental health population. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. So I think we'll open it up for questions. I'm sure Sophia probably can start us off with some that are already in, and then feel free to put your hands up.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a few questions for you, Graham, and I think one for you, Andrew, as well. So the first question is, do you believe that LGBTQ plus awareness training should be mandated in schools and workplaces?
Yes, I do. Definitely, but I think it has to be done in an integrated way. That the risk is if you do it as a sort of special event, then it's seen as a bit different. Whereas if it's sort of in between afternoon maths and English, then I think it's perceived by people as just normal life.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question is, what is your view of gender reassignment for young people?
Oh my God. I am uncertain, and that's the honest truth. I don't work with gender reassignment, and it's not really my area. Dr. Tickle is my equivalent in that area within the trust. I can see the positives and the negatives. I do know somebody who changed their mind in later life, but then I also know that doing the assignment before puberty has massive advantages. So yeah, I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously, some of these questions are going to be quite challenging, just through the nature of kind of being anonymous. So yeah, thank you for answering. The next question, I would say this is quite a personal question. I'll pose it to you, but if you don't feel comfortable answering, then please feel free not to. As we said before, we want this to be a safe space. So this is just, have you personally experienced workplace discrimination due to your sexuality?
Yes. I certainly have. But as I said earlier, it tends to be in a very British way. And medicine tends to be even more like that. So I remember a few years ago, I wanted to do a study, a piece of research on the experiences of gay and lesbian people within the mental health services. And I was literally laughed at by other psychiatrists, and in as many words, in a very sort of British subtle way, told to pick a reasonable topic. So that's the one that sticks in my mind. I think more frequently it's been that you are not in the in crowd. You're not one of the people like us group who will get the good jobs and yeah. And I don't think that's specific to sexuality, actually. I do think that not being male, obviously it doesn't apply to me, but that applies to 50% of the population. I've certainly been in very conservative organizations where it helped a lot to be male, to be straight, and to just to fit in. I've had awful homophobia, but not in the workplace. I think the vast majority of my dreadful homophobia has been strange places, like on holiday, bizarrely in Australia, where it was just horrific a few years ago. Like the Jimmy Somerville, my parents don't accept my sexuality, so I have very little contact with them, and they don't visit me at home or anything like that. And I think that in this day and age, that surprises people that it's still happening. But even though things have improved, the lives of many people are still a struggle in certain areas when it comes to acceptance of others.
Thank you. I think we're probably going to have to leave it there in the interest of time and making sure we get everything in. If we have time at the end, we can save any more questions there. So thank you very much, Graham. Thank you. And for our final session, we're going to hear from Alison Gilmour and Aaron Scott about their experience of reverse mentoring. Alison is Director of Strategy and Performance at NHFT, and Aaron is Project Manager for Northamptonshire Council. I'm going to start by asking them some questions. So I'm going to start with Aaron to actually just explain to us what reverse mentoring is in the first place.
Hello. So reverse mentoring, funny because I was talking about this with Alison the other day actually, and I was saying it's very much the Ron seal of mentoring programs, and for people that don't get that reference, it does what it says on the tin. You take a senior leader or someone that's in a position of power, and you literally reverse it. Rather than them taking the lead to support and mentor someone that's younger, junior, or inexperienced, the junior takes the lead role. They are the ones that support the senior leader to understand different viewpoints, to look at things from their community. So in this instance, it's focused on underrepresented groups and minority groups, and as a practice it can really help to refocus leaders and organisations towards inclusive thinking practice and that sort of thing, by exposing them to our experiences, to our opinions, and just to our way of life that they may not have been fully aware of or had access to in the past.
So just building on that, how did it work in practice? So that's the theory. How did it actually work?
So in practice, Diana and the whole program team, they reached out across all the organisations of the ICN looking for volunteers. And I'm going to really boil it down because it was a bit of a process, and I'm sure they can give you more of the ins and outs of it. But once we'd all volunteered, us as mentors, we had a day's worth of training. So we were really supported to look at different models and different techniques we could use, like purposeful storytelling and the GRACE model, which I won't get into too much detail about that, but we were really supported to be ready for it. And then I believe the mentees, they had something like maybe a couple of hours worth of training. I'd have to pass over to Alison for that one, but then it was really down to me to decide how the program would work and how the reverse mentoring works. So I set off to kind of come up with for lack of a better word, a bit of a curriculum, just a list of things that I wanted to go through, list of subject areas that I thought would be useful. And then I used our very first session to just have a frank sit down with Alison, get to know each other, set our boundaries, and set the scene as well, because I really wanted to know from that day one what she already knew, what she didn't, essentially, so I didn't go over something she was already really confident with. And we went over a number of different subjects. We talked about privilege, we talked about growing up as a gay man, we touched on mental health as Graham has. A lot less detail than Graham went through there, that's for sure. But it was really introductory sessions, and I mean we set homework as well. We set homework for it. So I got Alison to talk to her team about their experiences, and to start watching different things on TV, and just to sort of really immerse herself into our community.
Fabulous, thank you. So Alison, I know it was very much a choice. So as a senior leader, why did you choose to enrol in the programme?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. And just to say thank you for inviting me today. It's a real privilege to be here, and listening to Graham's story was quite moving. The impact that video had with Jimmy Somerville, looking at it through a different lens, is quite powerful. So yeah, thank you for that. For me, it was about overcoming my lack of confidence, I think, about to have conversations, not just about being gay or being part of the LGBTQ community, but about diversity as a whole. And Graham reflected about, the fact that professionals look away, not wanting to talk about sexuality specifically. And the feedback that I've heard from colleagues and prior to doing the reverse mentoring was that they genuinely don't feel that they've got the skills or training that make them feel safe to have difficult conversations, or conversations around sexuality, or the colour of somebody's skin, or a disability. So for me, it was really to get that better understanding of the challenges that people face by simply being different to me, not being white, middle-aged, heterosexual female. It helped me as a leader to really understand where I can add value and bring a fresh perspective, but more than that, thinking about how I can create a wider awareness and the right atmosphere in the workplace, not only with my team, but outside of my team. Learning and development, and I think as previous speakers have commented, there's a long way to go, so there's always something to learn. And as a nurse, I think I pride myself on the fact that I'm true to my nursing values, and so it's integrity, being truthful and being honest, and I think that's important to me, and so it's really important to be able to make sure that we're breaking down barriers where we've got discrimination, regardless of whether it's sexuality, whether it's the colour of somebody's skin, or a disability. Yeah, so that was the passion for me.
So it sounds like you were setting almost personal expectations and business or organisational expectations. Did you sort of predefine those, and how do you know if you're actually achieving them?
Gosh, that question wasn't on the list. So yes, there were personal expectations, absolutely. I quite happily write on my CV when I'm applying for a post that I value and recognise diversity. But I think as I got deeper into this programme, I realised that they were just words, that there was no truth behind it, there was no integrity behind it. So that was the personal challenge in terms of putting that truthfulness, putting that integrity behind it. But in terms of how do I know I've got there, one of the things that I've been doing in parallel to being part of the reverse mentoring programme is working with the director of OD for NHFT, running a programme called Together Against Racism. But when he asked me to lead one of the work streams, I was quite overwhelmed, and I thought, I can't do this. I really don't feel comfortable in this space. It was taking me out of my comfort zone. In terms of that success, I think it's enabled me to take that work forward to a point where by now we have got a really clearly defined set of standards as a trust we want to work towards. And I've helped to deliver those. I've helped to make them real, to make them happen. And we're in the first iteration now, getting an action plan together, and to see that coming together, to see the community coming together that I've been working with to help us deliver that and to enable it, for me, is a real sign of success, that we're, as a trust, as an organisation, we're breaking down barriers where there is diversity.
Excellent, thank you. So Aaron, it's obviously having an impact, but did you feel that you were prepared well enough for the conversations, and were they quite tricky at first?
I mean, yeah, I'm anyone that knows me knows that I'm a talker. So I just went into the whole program knowing that I was going to talk to whoever my mentee was going to be in just an open, honest, frank way. I was going to bring myself to it. So in terms of being prepared for conversations, I'm natural to that. I'm quite comfortable with that. But then the support given through the training was really helpful. And I mean, and throughout as well, there were multiple sessions set up for the mentors to get together to share their experiences where we could learn from each other. Everyone kind of started at different times depending on when the mentor reached out and when the mentee was able to respond. So it worked quite well in that for someone that started the sessions maybe a month or so after some of the others, it really helped to sort of hear what they were going through, their worries, their fears, so I could plan ahead. And being a project manager as well, I'd be very remiss if I hadn't planned the sessions and if I hadn't sort of thought ahead. And really I just brought myself and my experiences. Yes, the conversations, they could have been difficult, but Alison really was a great mentee in the sense that she as well came with an open mind. She questioned things, but in a professional and a professionally curious way, and not in a bad way. And I mean, we've touched on it earlier today as well, that for a lot of people in the LGBT community, you do sort of approach these things with a bit of trepidation. You don't know how people are going to react. So I think I was more nervous for that first section than I was for any of the others, because once I met Alison, I knew I was dealing with a human that did care to ask questions and have an open mind.
Okay, so obviously as a big advocate and having had the experience, how do you think that the reverse mentoring can empower colleagues from the LGBTQ plus community?
So just to flip it slightly, I think for people that are not in the community, it's really hard to understand almost the apathy that develops when you're faced with constant attacks on your identity. When you grow up and you hear things all the time like, that's gay, or just as we mentioned earlier, heteronormativity, where when you're asked, even from like a really young age, oh, is she your girlfriend, things like that, you start to get that internalized sense of homophobia, and it then becomes really hard when you're constantly having to do talks year on year, decade after decade, and nothing then changes. But it's not just the LGBT community either. It's kind of any and every marginalised group will feel to some degree that the same things that the LGBTQ plus community are, but just maybe slightly different. And so that is then where, yeah, reverse mentoring does have a positive impact, because it's not just teaching people about your community and the issues that matter. It's supporting them to be aware of what's happening around them and outside their professional and personal bubbles. It's about building that relationship with someone on a one-to-one level with mutual respect, and supporting them to introduce them to the subject, but then getting them to go and do the research themselves. And that's where we will start to see real change. The reverse mentoring program only started, I think it was about a year ago this month, so it's still early days, but from conversations that I've had with Alison and others throughout not only the trust but within Northamptonshire as well, I do feel that things will get better. in terms of empowering our community, though, like I say, it's really difficult. It really is. If you're one of those people that have had enough and are fed up of things always being the same, this is one of the better opportunities that we've had in a while. Rather than just teaching and saying the same thing over and over, we're encouraging people to find out for themselves.
Brilliant, thank you. So Alison, did you find any of the conversations difficult, and did you face any barriers or challenges?
No, it's really interesting, and just sort of reflecting on my time with Aaron. He was a talker, and he was really honest about that the first time we met, but it was great. It meant I needed to listen. It meant I needed to be a good listener. So honestly, no, I've been really, really fortunate. Aaron has been incredibly forgiving. And there have been times when I felt really clumsy having the conversations that we've had, and they've had an emotional impact. I always associate that when you get that tight tummy feeling in your tummy, and so you know something is real, and people are feeling that. We set clear boundaries right from the beginning. We knew how we wanted to work together. We agreed what the objectives were, making sure that we always met in a place that was comfortable, or we did a lot on Teams, we did a lot online. And I know people sometimes find Teams can be quite disempowering, but it hasn't. I think in this, it helped us hugely. And I think we've developed a really good, honest relationship, despite working through Teams. I've always been very careful to be respectful. I think, coming back to my nursing values as well, that kindness, that humility as a nurse, and wanting to learn, framed how I worked with Aaron. And no, he went to a huge amount of effort to make sure that our sessions together were planned. He always brought something to the table, and I could just effectively sort of sit back and enjoy the process, enjoyed the journey that it took me on, and I've come out of it, a far more reflective person in this space. So no, it's been really positive.
Excellent. So I've got two last questions, which I'm going to ask you both exactly the same thing. And the first question, we'll start with you, Alison, is would you recommend it? And if so, why? Oh
my gosh, yes, 100%. Absolutely. Very selfishly, I think it's really important to invest in yourself and development. But for me, it's made me think about and really question and challenge myself about how inclusive I am as a leader and as a manager at work. I've talked about the Development Together Against Racism programme. It's given me a huge amount of confidence in terms of transferring the skills and the insight that I've taken from my time with Aaron to having what I would have avoided discussions around race, ethnicity, sexuality in any space at work, in the way that Graham described, probably looked down, probably just avoided the discussions. It's absolutely given me the confidence to do that, and to know it's okay to do that, and to know it's okay that when you're doing it, sometimes you are going to make mistakes, as long as you're doing it from the heart for the right reasons, but those mistakes are forgiven and they're tolerated. It's we really need to be confident enough to have those difficult discussions. And it's really, the thing that I really took away from it was the fact that privilege is real. And I wouldn't have said that before. And it's wrong. It shouldn't be. Privilege, everybody should be afforded the same privileges. So it's given me the confidence to challenge preconceptions and prejudices. So absolutely, I would recommend it. And it has made me become a more compassionate leader. Brilliant.
And Aaron, same question.
Again, yes, I would. When I joined the programme, I'd noticed you see all these like equality screening assessments that people do, and the category for how would it affect LGBTQ plus people, they were always so wrong, or they just missed out completely. There was never any consideration given, and it always felt as if it was finger in the air, kind of how would it in a very generic sense. I kind of feel that if people were to go through it, have those conversations, again, not just from the LGBTQ plus perspective, but from all sorts of protected groups, one, you'd get a richer understanding of the community, which will help you with your day-to-day work, but you can also take a lot from it. And then from my own perspective, and for people who are thinking of being mentors, it is very much that two-way relationship, so you can get a lot from it as well. You can learn a lot about yourself and about how you can conduct yourself, but also, I mean, one of the outcomes from meeting Alison was I was put in touch with some of her colleagues, which has then led on to me partnering up with the NHFT's staff network group to plan History Month events. So tomorrow we've got, over in the Guildhall in Northampton, we're doing a exhibition of sorts, like an introduction to LGBTQ plus history, and we've been working on that together between Northwest Children's and NHFT, and things like that would not have happened, or would not have happened as easily if I hadn't had that connection with Alison.
Brilliant. So last question then. 3 words to describe the experience of reverse mentoring. Aaron.
Positive role reversal.
And Alison?
I don't think 3 words is enough. For me, there's something about insight and learning, that professional curiosity, but most importantly, that is compassion and inclusive thinking and inclusive leadership and what that brings.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much. That's really, really interesting and informative. Sophia, are there any questions?
Yeah, we did have a couple. I think one of them you've kind of already addressed around, what topics did you find challenging to talk about in the reverse mentoring programme? And then the other question was, do you feel LGBTQ plus colleagues feel psychologically safe to come out in your organisations?
I'll try to do the last one, because I'll be honest, my ADHD has led me to the point where I can only remember that last question now. I feel it's a mixed bag. We've done a lot over the last few years to try to promote Northamptonshire Council, as well as Western Children's, to be safe spaces for people, but you will always have your barriers. So, for example, we've done a lot. For the first time in a long time, or the first time ever, I feel, we've got to the point where we do regularly fly the pride flag during key calendar days to show our support. We have regular staff network meetings that get promoted quite regularly. It gets talked about within our chief exec's blog and vlog. It gets pushed through into our equality forum. So there's so much that we are doing. We are trying to be as out there as possible so that people can see that it is a supportive organisation. Obviously, like I say, there's always challenges, and there are always things that probably prevent people from feeling ready. So, I mean, very recently, we've had in Northamptonshire quite a lot of homophobia on social media in response to us flying the flag and in response to pride events and such like that. And it can then be difficult to feel safe when your community or you yourself are the target of that homophobia. And as Graham touched upon earlier, it's psychological readiness isn't just about what the organisation can do. It's a whole raft of other factors. It's the experiences you had growing up. It's experiences you have in your personal life. So from a workplace point of view, we're doing everything that we can. We're always open up to more suggestions, and we offer the ability to sort of provide those suggestions, join in with the staff networks in an anonymous way. If you want to just contact the chair of the network with your suggestions, with your thoughts, to be put on a blind copy mailing list so that you can be involved with the information but not take that step to come out and be ready. That is your prerogative, and we'll support you in every way we can to do that.
Thank you. Brilliant. Right, in the interest of time, I think we'll have to wrap up there. I think it's been a fascinating 90 minutes. Lots of food for thought, lots of some really useful tips in terms of looking at organisations. I think I a bit like Alison was touched by the bravery which I hadn't appreciated as a 14-year-old listening to Bronski Beat, the bravery of the songwriting and quite a few other people in that time. And I wonder if we've lost some of that bravery in the last few years and the sort of more political comment in popular culture. I'm really drawn to this sort of, we've heard a lot about creating safe environments, but we've also heard a lot about protection, and the sort of the third leg of that tripod feels around education. And what I'm hearing loud and clear, that it's an open-minded education. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to make mistakes, but recognizing that privilege is really real. So I think that just everyone's commitment to that support for moving from protection to a safe space and safe environments, I think is critical. We're very much on a journey, but I think all of our speakers have really helped us on that journey. So thank you all for your time. So Annika, Anamika, Graham, Alison and Aaron. And also in the background, Diane and Sophia for pulling the whole event together, keeping things running smoothly. And also thanks to you all for attending and taking this time out of your day. I hope you've enjoyed the event. I'm going to hand back to Aaron to close. I think there are a couple of slides to finish off, and I think we have 3 minutes for you to do so, Aaron.
Yes, make it very quick. Sophia, I'm assuming the slides are going to come up in 2 seconds-ish?
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
So yeah, while you're finding them, just to echo the thanks to everyone for coming along today. As you can see on there, if you have been affected by any information, please do talk to someone. There are a number of resources on there, including the Samaritans. Depending on which organisation you work for as well, there may be workplace support in place. You've got the talking therapy teams on here. You've got mental health crisis, so the mental health number.me and the Samaritans as well. You are more than welcome to reach out to any of your staff network leads who might be able to support you as well. They are a great local resource, especially if you have more questions. Again, just follow the same rules that we had in here, respectful and professional curiosity, and you will receive the same as well. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming along today. The feedback from you is so important to us. We put something on every year for History Month, but there are events that happen throughout the year as well, and it happens because of your feedback, letting us know what went well, what could improve, what you'd like to see next time. So QR code is there. The link, if it's not already, will be posted in the chat. I think it's already in there. So please do click that and provide us with as much feedback as you can. Is that our last slide?
Just a thank you at the end there.
I'm assuming, Sophia, Diana, the recording will be out just as soon as.
Yeah, so that will, we'll send, I think it's a WeTransfer link, because obviously some organisations are outside of the NHS, so we'll do it like that. Cool.
We'll do one last shameless plug as well. So tomorrow, Guildhall, doors open from 10 AM until 4 PM. We have executive members from North Northants, West Northants, NHFT and the Children's Trust coming along from 12 o'clock, where they will be reaffirming their commitment to equalities as a whole, but also doing a pledge towards improved access to healthcare for the LGBTQ+ community. Like I say, it's an introductory kind of history, LGBTQ+ history. Please come along if you can. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.